key of what everyone is. Sorry. So that's kind of what everyone's pain point is right now. So you're not alone. Unfortunately, everybody's in the same situation. The bad news is we're all pulling from the same pool of people. And you've got two mindsets. You've got the candidates that are still hesitant to re-enter the workforce. We had a massive exodus of female workers to take care of their children through the pandemic. And we're not going to see them coming back until probably September, because they want to know that their childcare is taken care of, that school is actually going to go back, that it's confirmed before they re-enter the workforce. Some people are still afraid of the pandemic. Some people are anti-vaxxers. They don't want to be in a workplace, or they're taking care of elderly parents, and they're not wanting to be a part of the workplace still. And there are also mismatches in the market. We've got places where the unemployment is very, very high and places where it's a lot lower, but the available employees don't always match what the need is in it. And some people just think it's not worth it. Their unemployment benefits are higher. They're staying home, making that money versus bothering to go to work. And, you know, by the time you pay childcare, you pay your transportation, your gas, your everything to go to work, they're not losing that much staying home on unemployment. Luckily, that will be ending in Tennessee in just a couple of weeks. And I think that will help the workforce as well. They're also saying between 2021 and 2022 is going to be the year of the Great Migration. We're going to see turnover at levels we've never experienced before. They're expecting about 35% of the workforce to change jobs. And that is very impactful, especially when you think about the fact that, you know, you kept these people through the pandemic. They've been consistent. They've just kind of staying low and making it work. And right now they're going to look for something different. Colin mentioned that the wages are going up in the marketplace, so they will probably leave for a wage increase. The other piece of this migration is they said that CEOs weren't changing jobs over the past 18 months, but they're about to see a 35 to 40% increase in CEO turnover, because some of them were supposed to retire and they kept them in place to get them through the pandemic. And the other part of them did not do well through the pandemic. So now it's time to do those changes as well. And speed to market is what we're talking about too. Is the other thing is candidates are getting picked up so quickly. I always use large companies as an example because they post a job. It's a 30-day job post. They leave it out there. And at the end of 30 days, they open it up and read the resumes. In today's market, you'll open up that job from a job board and there won't be any resumes in there. It's not how it's working right now. These people aren't looking. They're not on the job boards. They're not just throwing their name out there. And if you don't call them back in a couple of days, they have moved on. And so getting those people on board quickly, getting their interview process done, getting them contacted, getting them interviewed, getting them hired, speed to market is extremely important. There's no time to wait. And the last thing that is in this part is the baby boomers are going to be exiting. They put their retirement on hold, the people that are at that point, and now we're going to be seeing that happen now that the pandemic has settled. Now I'm going to pass it over to Charles to talk about a little bit about what's going on in the market.
Yeah. Thanks, Kristen. So as we look at kind of and on this slide in particular, we look at the left side, right side. One is more of what's going on from the perspective of the candidate. It is also really important for small to medium-sized businesses to actually understand what are the factors that are driving. Kristen and I have these conversations with our clients every day. And overwhelmingly, Lori's story is the one that we hear over and over and over again. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel that we're going to talk about. But there's a really significant mismatch of employers not understanding what's happening. If you watch the news, you see labor numbers and they don't make sense. So particularly with the fact that there are over 8 million jobs that do not exist today that existed last year, right? So we think, okay, so with all of the people that are around, those people should be clamoring for jobs. And it just doesn't work that way. We've got a significant mismatch of the wrong people living in the wrong markets. So that makes on the unemployment and the lack of available labor seem even worse than it's bad, and it seems even worse. But you look at the 9.3 million people who are unemployed plus non-participants. That global number includes people who were never in the workforce. They were never looking. They have left for reasons that Kristen talked about. Don't underestimate that people don't want to work. It's the fact that people can do home ec math. and they can realize that the cost of childcare alone is keeping so many women and men, but predominantly women, out of the workforce, that they're going to be the last ones to join. So that's a big pool that is going to be joining as a lagging participant, which tells us, if nothing else, as we talk about kind of what are the best practices we want to engage moving forward, flexible work schedules, you're going to have to become that much more flexible with how you accommodate for different shifts and different people. And it's something that clients that we talk to, it's difficult, that you want to build the most stable and steady and reliable workforce you can. Unfortunately, you've got to meet the employees where they are. And that disconnect has kept employers from adapting, and they're already missing out on talent. So that's one big issue. As far as the non-participants, I think, Kristen, you were looking at the fact that the way 4% and 1% work out. You walk through that.
Every month, the month of April, 4% of the workforce left their jobs. Of that same workforce, 1% of those people were people that actually resigned. Only 3% are getting terminated for business closures, layoffs, different things like that. So we're seeing that that 1% of the labor force left last month to find something better, something different. They're confident they can find other jobs. So it's not just these businesses are shutting down and people are getting laid off in mass anymore. They are able to find something, and they're confident in walking away from a job to have another job ready.
Yeah. So the way we view it is that putting a little bit of pressure on ourselves as employers is there isn't so much a labor shortage in the market. There's a labor shortage for you. It's a competitiveness issue. The good talent is out there. We talked to a lot of people that say there's all these people and no one wants to work. No, they want to work. You just haven't given them a reason to want to come work for you. And we're going to talk about culture and all of that. The good news is a lot of the labor shortage has been due to that the government combination of some restrictive immigration policies that have kept young foreign nationals from coming in to work. A lot of them who are in school have left, so they're not graduating and joining the American workforce. There's a lot of industries that are still limited in their production. Those employees are waiting. The cruise ship industry, those employees are waiting to go back to that industry. They're not necessarily jumping over. That's why the number, also looks so big on the non-participants. Unemployment, we beat up on unemployment, and the fact of the matter is we're about to find out if the social experiment is right, as Tennessee and other larger states, go ahead and pull out of the federal unemployment program, and the whole program ends in September anyway. So for Lori and company, we know that September is going to be a really important inflection point where there's going to be an immediacy of people looking for work, which also means the work has to be done in August, getting ready to accept those people competitively over everybody else. So we treat it like this is going to get better real fast in terms of labor, but you've got to get to the front of the line on candidates. So those are some of our talking points for what to be thinking about. Then there's, as kind of Colin mentioned, the way wages are being driven up by the free market. There is the Amazon effect where, sure, people are looking at working at Amazon for $15 an hour. Good news, bad news of that is, sure, they're leaving you now, or they're not taking jobs to go make more. But the turnover rate, and coincidentally, the New York Times kind of did a workup of what's going on with Amazon and how they've affected the market. They did that this week. There's also 150% turnover at those $20 an hour or below positions at Amazon. So while they are your biggest competitor right now in most major metros, those people are going to become available. So the math just tells you they're working for Amazon today, but they won't be by Christmas, right? So it's again goes back to there is about to be a transition point with more labor continuing to come online.
Well, and I think Nashville's been hit really hard with Amazon because they not only got the smaller headquarters. In August of 2020, Amazon announced they had hired over 1,000 people in the Nashville market. And you have currently 2 distribution centers in your metro, with one more opening this year and a fourth one opening next year. So it's going to be a big impact inside of the Nashville market.
Right. So we look at who your competitors are. The one thing that's really different now, that's changed over time, is your competitors are in this new kind of transparent age of employer relationships and branding and availability. Your competitor, if you're running a hotel and you wonder where's all the hotel talent or restaurant talent, they're going to an Amazon warehouse, right? So you're not competing with your in industry sector competitors. So you've got to figure out what is it that makes your industry better to work at, right? So it's important to understand that. When we look at what have they, right, in general, what have competitors done differently? There are competitors that you cannot compete with based on brand power and advertising. But we also, we ask organizations all the time, well, how do people know you exist, right? How are you advertising to come work for you, all right? It could be things like advertising for jobs, even if the job may not be available right now, just to get people seeing your brand out there on job boards. You're trying to collect talent for the future, right? Small businesses say, well, we're just reacting to what we need in the moment. And I think that kind of to compound on the challenge, we would say you can't afford not to plan for growth by looking for talent that you might not need right now. Just at least get out there and make contact. Most employers are still not leveraging their, we call them social media, I call it business media networks. What are you doing to post what it's like to work for you experientially? I think, Kristen, that's something you've talked to employers about.
Absolutely. We see especially smaller businesses really utilizing Instagram and Twitter and all the things that the young, quick to respond workforce wants to be able to apply for your job on their phone. They don't want to come in and fill out an application. They don't even want to have a resume necessarily. Everything needs to be able, they want to communicate via their cell phone. And if you make that hiring process any more difficult than what they can do on a phone, they're going to go to the next person. So you've got to keep it to where they can respond quickly and you respond to them quickly. It is definitely this time to fill, and speed to hire has got to be improved. Yeah. Because you have to, as soon as you find one, you have to act on it.
And tactically, the way that looks like, especially with although we see it across all age demographics, but for purposes of, let's say, the younger, more dynamic generation, let's go 30 or under in that group. The things like being able to have a live Zoom conversation when someone applies. Let's have a live chat, even if you're walking through your hallway. The pomp and circumstance of scheduling an interview, come next week, we'll sit down. That game is too long for you. You don't want to do that. If a candidate applies, you prompt them immediately, hey, let's have a live conversation, right? That 5 minutes of engagement allows you to begin to collect information, because you've got to be prepared to make a faster hiring decision. All right? So that speed through market is costing businesses that aren't dynamic enough. So things like, if you have like we have on our email signatures, you can click on a Zoom to begin a conversation with somebody. If you think you might like a candidate right off the bat, get in their face immediately, virtually. If you're not comfortable with that, get comfortable. It's going to really help you with talent.
We're switching our ATS system just so we have the ability to directly text every candidate instantly, and they can text back with us through the system. And that they want to text. They don't want to answer their phone. They don't want voicemails. I'm a different generation. I can admit that, but it's definitely a different thing now.
The other thing is the way your postings, we're still finding that employers are using what I call the monster.com format to post, where you begin with this paragraph about everything that you're looking for. If your job post doesn't begin with what they're going to want to do, you're losing the modern candidate. Everybody's looking for the value proposition first. The fact that you need experience and you need all these things, that's a you problem. That's not a them problem. They're looking for, hey, what makes me want to work here? You lead with that. These optimized job postings must reflect what it is that the people see that's in it for them, right? That's how the modern candidate views it. And if you are not competitive as a disadvantage, if you're not viewed as engaging and on that trend, you're viewed as a company that is slower, less desirable to work for, right? So that leaves you in the worst category that you can possibly be as a small to medium-sized businesses, is the one that can only compete on pay. And no one wants to be in that game, right? So the other issue is, and I think Colin may have mentioned this, talk or alluded to this, in terms of software developers. Why would you limit yourself to thinking about people in the Nashville market, right? I know that Nashville is a growing tech market, but in this age where you have had a really good experiment, of observation to see what a remote work environment might look like for you, you want to expand your national footprint, begin to recruit nationally. That opens up a whole avenue. So we're still have many employers who are thinking regional, right? If you're in Nashville, you want to be competing with tons of professional talent that's in Atlanta, that's willing to work remote. They're also geographically available where you can still get to Nashville fairly quickly. That also has allowed medium-sized businesses to focus on the idea of, I've got people in these markets. Should I ever want to expand my markets? I've already got people in those cities. All right. So there's a downstream effect that people and everyone else is seeing it, particularly in software and any tech jobs. We're seeing the national footprint expanding. Then there's the last issue of what smart competitors have realized. The cost effectiveness of getting into the job market as an employer right now. What is the cost of having these jobs go open? What is the cost of turnover, right? That's what's driving the raise in pay right now, right? That may level off in a year, but for right now, you look at the cost of what does it take every time a hospital loses a good nurse. We could find $15,000 in soft costs every time there's turnover. For a boring old office job, you're looking at a minimum $25,000 to $3,000 just in the turnover cost, plus the time and heartache for you. So these are real costs that are embedded in the process. So you may want to start thinking about, to get to that available talent in the future, it may be worth the premium now. You come out ahead on the back end. So that kind of leaves us with, what do we do? Well, we ask, this is what Chris and I do for a living. So we always ask folks, what is your overall strategy? And just like when you go in for an oil change, like they tell you, we've got a 7-point plan to check your car. What you need to have the same as a hiring plan. We would ask you questions. What is your staff doing to help you bring in more labor? They are better at it than you are. Right. So
they work there every day. They know the culture. They can tell your story, the day in the life, every day.
Tactically, one small example of way of doing that is getting folks to post testimonials about what it's like to work where they are. Get them to show something on their social media feeds, on their LinkedIn, about what it's like to work with you. You get people doing that. That power of network is pretty significant. It's something that we think small businesses don't think to do. Right? So you want to proactively be using them and engaging them. And by the way, employees that do that end up being more engaged. They end up caring about bringing on people they're going to want to work with, which only benefits you. Other issues that Chris, and this question comes up a lot. What about a referral program? We ask people, well, what do you do? And say, well, if somebody, hires somebody and they stay with us, we'll pay them X amount of money. And then Kristen, you ask them how long does it take?
How long does it take? When will you pay the money?
Yeah. So if that bonus is 6 months out, that's not an incentive program. There is an immediacy of gratification that's needed to put people to work. So, this whole, I need them to last 90 days or to know that it's a good hire before I pay the bonus. Folks aren't motivated to do that. That's why referral programs are failing.
I often say you're better off giving them $20 the day their referral starts than giving them $200 6 months from now. Yeah. That is an immediate thing, and it can be something that they feel and they're motivated by because you put money in their pocket today. You bought their lunch for the day. Yeah. And that usually means more because they've forgotten about it. So by the time it hits their paycheck or it's given to them, they don't even remember what it was for.
So it's about properly incentivizing people. Kristen, what in terms of kind of using past resumes and applications?
Absolutely. We all like track our customer data and we email customers or specials or bonuses or different things that we're doing. When you get those resumes in, you can build a database that you continue to use those email addresses to notify about job openings. If you catch the right candidate on the right day that you may have missed out on, and they're having a bad day at work, you might be able to get them back. But that is a great free database that you have with all your past resumes and applications that you have sitting in a drawer somewhere or sitting in your ATS system, and just let them know you're hiring and continue to communicate with them unless they were really bad and you don't want to communicate with them. But the people that you might have missed out on, you want to keep those people in mind and let them know that you're still thinking about them.
Yeah. And then the other part of a strategy that, you know, necessity creates new processes is source together. So, you know, organizations, EO is already perfectly built to do this. How often and how many of you share resumes and that those databases with each other? You have much more that you can gain from sharing that database than you can from hoarding those, you know, that information. You get a lot of candidates that might not be good for you, right? But don't underestimate the power of you getting a candidate that applied for one of your folks. Say, hey, so-and-so gave me this resume. I'd like to talk with you, right? Now they feel like you sourced them, you engaged and found them. They're much more receptive to a conversation with you, all right? You begin a better employer relationship. So, you know, look at how it is that you can share candidate data, all right? And the same way on LinkedIn, you link what you're looking for in candidates, right? A recruitment network. It's imperative for, again, for this new modern age to do that. You know, the absence of that is going to quickly become a competitive disadvantage. You'll be lost and forgotten in the market. The other thing we want to kind of talk about, and this is you know, a big thing, Brian, I know you've kind of always go back to this culture is king. You know, people want to work for you. We always press and work on our clients to do two things. And this was pre-COVID. It's just, we just do more of it now, is we need to build on the existing experience. Because right now we worry about this, you know, nebulous kind of abstract labor market. The biggest competitive advantage that you can have in 2021 is to hold on to your existing talent. That will, that will keep good talent. It's going to not, you want to stop the bleeding, right? But that's going to help bring on better talent. But don't lose sight of the fact that what Kristen said, the threat is real. 2021 and 2022 are a migration year. People are rethinking where they work across the board, even if they're happy. All right, so you've got to retain those quality of folks, and you've got to project out what the next 18 months will look like for them at your happy little village. All right. The other thing, and this is kind of the last kind of big thing that we'll mention, you know, if we did a poll real quick, I would say, how many of you have a position or a statement on the issue of diversity, equity, and inclusion? If you don't know what this means, I think it is really important that you begin to do some research, because, and Kristen can tell you, modern younger candidates, right, are actively asking. It's not about do they care about it. They are asking their employers, what is your DEI policy or your stance, right? If you get caught flat-footed saying, well, we don't have one, we treat everybody the same, you just tuned that person out. You have to speak the language, right, for those candidates, right? This isn't, we're not talking about having to reinvent your entire organization, although larger organizations really are, based on particular filters and management practices. But you have to have a statement. You have to have a position on the issue, or you are going to miss out on a significant number of the talent pool.
This is great stuff, guys, and I appreciate it very, very much. We're at the spot now to where we want to be able to have some time to do questions and answers. And I know we got a couple dropped in the chat, but please do that. And I was going to start with one of my own, though, because I found it interesting. I think Laurie and Colin, I think they're looking for probably two different candidates. You have a general labor person, and you have for lack of a better word, a professional candidate. they're looking for a completely different person having the exact same issues. And it's very difficult to always answer something with one big problem. But what do you see as the one domino, since it's so far reaching, what's the one domino that needs to fall to ease the pain? Is that
the dot for the market?
yes.
I think the assumption is that you can't find the people, right? If we presuppose that you've advertised yourself properly, right? Then people know who you are. We are really waiting for that key segment of the population to be available to rejoin. That will happen when childcare is no longer an issue. It is such an impediment to so many right now, that won't happen until September when schools start. So we know that that's going to be a big thing. And two, when what you are paying for your labor, is the same or less than what unemployment is available, that will turn. All right. There are a significant chunk of folks who are making, in Tennessee, it's 175 a week or something thereabouts, and state unemployment plus 300 federally every week. That adds up to more on a monthly basis than what you're paying. So that competitor, cynically speaking, is about to disappear, right? So you're going to have people joining. So September is going to create a market change.
They do believe that this market will right size itself by 2023, but we still have to deal with this for a while.
Yeah. And she did say 23, if you heard that.
That sounds like it's not right around the corner. What do you think? So,
No.
Gotcha.
So the growing pains, you're going to alleviate 20% of the pain at the end of the summer. The rest of this, the competitive pain, is what's going to last another year after that.
I'm not sure it makes me feel better. I'm trying to work that out. So Scott Russo threw in there, he said, no more hire slow and fire fast.
Hire fast is always important, but you'd rather fire from the ones you bring in. So right now it's hire fast, fire fast if they don't work out. I've got one client I'm working with that needed forklift drivers in high volume, and that's not my space, but we were trying to help, and they literally gave me the dates. When I got a person on the phone, we scheduled to come in for an evaluation. They let them start the next day. They might have fired him the day after. We were churning through them, just trying to get some filled. So they needed 8, and they needed them immediately.
And it's not, it's not that you're devaluing people. You want to be upfront with them. It's like, listen, let's get you to work. Let's try this. Let's have that seize on that immediacy and sense of urgency and your need and their interest.
Richard, I would add, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs, and I think, having over the past year, it's presenting, especially EO members, an opportunity to rethink some things and to get better. And I think, I can't remember if it was Kristen or Charles, but the comment that they made that I think really should resonate with members is, what is your value prop to the employee as a business? A lot of times when I talk to entrepreneurs in or outside of EO, the mindset is we got to offer benefits. And really, I think where the world's going is, benefits are table scraps. It's really, what is your culture? What do you stand for? What is the value to the employee that you're providing as an entrepreneur? And I think there are a lot of things that you can say and promote. And I think, the companies that are successful, I will cite a company in town that's not an EO, but I know them. There's a company up in Hendersonville that does welding. It's called Wilrow. They're not a client of ours, but they have been doing everything. I mean, they're probably 35 employees, but they're posting on LinkedIn, they're posting on social media, they're talking about their work experience, they're highlighting employees, they're acknowledging employees, and it's all about culture. And that's where I think the game is really changing. It's really making, it used to be kind of a Coca-Cola large Fortune 500 type thing, and you're really seeing that companies downstream, I think, are having to do more and more of that to compete and communicate their culture than they have in the past. Would you agree with that, Charles?
I do. Yeah. And notice how much we're not talking about compensation. That's, you can throw money at this problem and not see a result. So it's not about the money. It's about what are you doing to project your business to the market. People are going to choose to work for you.
That's kind of related to kind of Colin's next comment there. He said he's seeing, employees coming back, but the need to pay more than they were making when they left. And of course, budgets are tough everywhere, but
It is tough. And they did leave and probably got something for a short period of time that did pay more. Their self-value has changed. Their perception has changed. I think restaurants and hotels are going to have the hardest time because they were used to paying a small salary plus tips. And those people left to work in a warehouse. I mean, here at FedEx was paying $15 to $20 an hour. And it just pushed everything up because supply chain was in such demand and they had such a need. Well, once we reopen and the supply chain's not the problem anymore, FedEx is going to start minimizing that pay again, and it will start to come down. And it's just going to be a challenge to get through. It's painful, but what I'm afraid of is when 2023 comes and we're kind of stabilizing, companies are going to make decisions to hire the younger, less expensive workforce and do some eliminations of the ones that are being overpaid for what their value is.
understood. So let's see here. Mark, instead of me just reading what you have there, do you mind just hopping on and kind of commenting on that?
Please.
Sure. Hey guys. Currently, there's a couple of strategies that we use that have helped us. One, we switched part of our marketing dollars over into recruiting. Why market when you don't have enough people? So we moved a lot of that budget over. We have a full-time recruiting person that's all they do is focus on getting us people. And then we used to try to start people at a lower rate, and then as they prove themselves, we would move the number up. We don't do that anymore. We start top dollar and then get rid of them if they don't, because if you don't start top dollar, you won't ever see the great people.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to start somebody low is that ship has sailed.
Mhm.
You have to start with the absolute most you can and get them out if they don't work out.
Right.
It's it feels like a lot like professional athlete drafts, right? You've got to pay a bonus and you've got to treat them, but you also treat them like they're all stars coming in. It's not about ego stroke, but it's like, look, we're going to make the investment. It's going to work, and you move on and know that there is a failure rate, but you can't afford the alternative.
Exactly.
So that's what I was talking about, the cost effectiveness of hiring, right?
Perfect. Thanks. I appreciate the questions, guys. Marla, are we ready just about to break into small groups, or what do you think?
Hey, let's do one more question and then we're ready. Anybody want to throw one out there? We can unmute and ask.
Scott Russo just asked Mark, he said, is your recruiter an internal employee?
Yeah, he is. Mhm.
Perfect. We did see, we were talking, I've not had to, fortunately for me, I've not had to deal with this current labor market, but we definitely had people that would leave and come back. I noticed Colin was talking about that a minute ago, and hopefully, and I don't know if this helps, but the grass is not always greener, that's for sure. And going to work for these big guys it's not an easy job usually. So anyway, cool. All right, Marla, you're up. And you're muted.
Sorry, I just launched into it. So we're going to break on to breakouts. I've got someone from Adams Keegan in each group, so y'all can pick their brain in a smaller environment. We've got a few questions to get you started, and then I'm also going to send out the survey link. If y'all would just give us some feedback, we'd love to have it. So if you'll hang on 1 second, I'll get you broken out. So great to see everybody this morning. So here we go.